I believe she can have a similar impact to a Magic Johnson, to a Larry Bird, because of just how interesting she is, her game, and just the coverage that she was being shown in the college game, and just the ability to get people to watch her games. 18.9 million views.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Come on now. I think she can do that. And the game's already getting a lot better in the women in WNBA. Like, the viewership is going up.
Oh, yeah.
I believe she'll take it to another level when she gets there. Last week, Monday, obviously South Carolina versus Iowa. South Carolina won that game.
That was Sunday.
It was Sunday. Excuse me. It was Sunday. I was thinking of the other championship game, and UConn, they beat Purdue. But yeah, South Carolina versus Iowa on Sunday. South Carolina won convincingly. They won by double digits, and not surprising. I knew that South Carolina was going to win. They have more talent. Caitlin Clark, as great as she is. Unfortunately, you're going to need some talent in order to win at the end of the day. She lost to LSU last year. Now she lost to South Carolina. Lost to two better teams. So there's nothing wrong with that. She's still all-time great talent, in my opinion. One of the greatest. Honestly, she might be the most – you could argue she might be the most impactful women's college player in the past 20 years. It's argument to be made because just look at the engagement. I'm looking at the numbers. 18.9 million views for the championship game, the most ever. That is more than the NBA Finals.
Yep.
The impact is there.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people on social media that want to look at it and say they want to take shots at ESPN and all these other networks because they are highlighting Caitlin Clark more than the South Carolina going undefeated. My thing with that is that I understand what they're trying to say, but you have to realize that South Carolina's not the first team in the past 10 years to go undefeated. Like, remember UConn? UConn, they have, I think they had 4 years where they went undefeated. And as great as it wasn't as big as what Caitlin Clark is doing. And so maybe just ESPN, they're looking at it like, well, UConn did it before. How much do people like really care about that? And I will say South Carolina, they were about to go on an undefeated season last year, but Caitlin Clark bounced them out. So I just think that I understand the frustration, but at the same time, I look at the Caitlin Clark, I look at her journey and what she's had to overcome. I just think her story, just the way that she's presenting herself, I believe is just more interesting than South Carolina. Now, I will say that they deserved more attention. It seemed like every other commercial was Caitlin Clark. So I can understand where people are coming from that, because all we got from South Carolina was just like Dawn Staley press conferences, quotes, and everything. It wasn't any other players.
Yeah, that's true.
So I will say that is true, but for the most part, Caitlin Clark's impact to the game, to the women's sports in general, women's basketball in general, I believe she deserves all the acclaim, all the attention, because she has really just brought just a different level of viewership to a sport that a lot of folks were just brushing off, weren't really paying attention to, because either they just didn't respect women's basketball, or they just had their own preconceived notions about the game and stuff. So I salute Caitlin Clark on that one. South Carolina, salute to them. Dawn Staley is an amazing coach, and I expect her to win more championships from years to come. You have any thoughts on South Carolina winning, or is that?
No, I mean, I wasn't really surprised, honestly. They were the better team. They were undefeated. They had like one close game in the tournament, maybe two at most. They was pretty dominant throughout the tournament. I honestly wasn't surprised that they was. And honestly, Iowa had no answer for Cardosa.
No,
I knew she was just going to feast on him.
Yeah.
And I forgot. I know her name is Raven. I forgot her last name. But she was putting the straps on Caitlin Clark after that first quarter.
Yeah.
She went 5 for 20 when she was guarding. I said, oof.
Yeah, they were doing their thing that game.
I did notice something, though.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a big problem when she goes to the league.
What?
Caitlin Clark can't go left.
She can't go left. I mean, I remember you said that during the game. You were like, "Oh, can she go? Like, why can't she go left?"
Like I was really panicked. Like I just noticed it. I was like, every time she dribbled left, she either was losing the ball or was like easily picked up her dribble or was making a bad. I was like, wait, can she go left?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think she can go. And it kept happening throughout the game. And every time they forced her left, she would either lose the ball or have to pass it. Or she couldn't get separate unless she was doing that step back. She was not getting no type of separation, no penetration in the lane when she went left.
I told you when I went. Remember, I went to go see Iowa versus Maryland last year, and like Maryland did a number on her. They were really taking her out of the game. Like you put a taller, stronger, more athletic guard on her, she's gonna have a difficult time trying to get her points, get her shot off. And that's what happened against Maryland with her last year. Obviously this year she was able to get her way, but we lost some pieces. But when you have like a more athletic, stronger defender guarding her, she's gonna have a tough time. Now I do believe when she gets into the league, I think she'll thrive. She'll eventually thrive. She'll eventually be able to She'll be able to adjust. She'll do her thing. I've seen Diana Taurasi. She's not the biggest. She's not the strongest. You have all these other guards in the league the Kelsey Plums and all the other stuff. Like they're not the biggest. They're not the strongest. They're not the most athletic. But they were able to adjust their game and eventually become one of the better players in the league. So I expect her to do the same thing. I think she's one of the best talents we've seen. She was the Steph Curry of college basketball. I told you this story before, but I didn't really know her at all. And I went to the game and I was like, damn, she doing all these moves like Stephen Curry, even though she wasn't hitting the shots. I was like, man, she must be like really good or something. And I checked her stats and she's averaging 27. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I was right about that. And then I remember just, the highlights and everything from ESPN. I was like, oh, that's her. So I expect her to be really good in the league, and I can't wait. Good. Another thing, her impact. I think it's like a 93% uptick in ticket sales for the Fever because the Fever had the number one pick, and I think it's projected that she'll go to the Fever. And also, the Las Vegas Aces, they moved to a different arena with more seats, because they're playing the Indiana Fever first game of the season. Now, I've seen people debunk it like, they've done this all the time. But it's just interesting that for the Indiana Fever game, they will move to a different arena. So it could be a coincidence. I think it's not. I believe it's because they suspect that there's going to be a lot of people that want to go to that game because of Caitlin Clark. I believe Caitlin Clark, her impact to the game, I believe she's going to bring more viewership, more attention. I remember I heard a comparison to her, to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird when they were in college and they brought in viewership to the NBA. I believe she can have a similar impact to a Magic Johnson, to a Larry Bird, because of just how interesting she is, her game, and just the coverage that she was being shown in the college game, and just the ability to get people to watch her games. 18.9 million views.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Come on now. I think she can do that. And the game's already getting a lot better in the women in WNBA. Like the viewership is going up. Oh, yeah. I believe she'll take it to another level when she gets there. And the WNBA's problem has always been, in my opinion, just the scheduling. They're in the summertime. People are out and about and stuff like that. It's kind of hard for people to like really pay attention. And then also like the finals, I think it's it's around football season. Yeah. So it's a difficult time. But I believe that Caitlin Clark will make it so where people will have to pay attention to the WNBA. People will have to respect the women's game because of just her name alone and her impact will go a long way. And then you have Angel Reese as well coming to the league. You have other women players coming into the league. So I expect, and then also the college game with Juju, she's going to be back.
Oh, yeah.
Paige Becker, she's going to be back. So I believe the next iteration of these women basketball players, people are going to start paying attention more. Shout out to Diana Taurasi. Shout out to Candace Parker, Maya Moore, Angel Wilson, Kelsey Plum, all these women, they paved the way for the next generation. I look at them, I look at all those women, Lisa Leslie. They're like the Bill Russells. They're like the Oscar Robertsons. They're like the Jerry West. That's what they are. They were the ones. They paved the way. They opened the door. Surely the viewership maybe wasn't the greatest. The money wasn't the greatest. But this next iteration, I compare it to the Magics, the Birds, the Patrick Ewings, the Jordans, the Charles Barkleys. That's the next iteration coming in my opinion, where they're going to take the baton and they're going to elevate the game even more to where now they won't have to worry as much about, we only getting paid $70,000. We're only getting paid $100,000. I believe this next iteration will take the women's league to another level to where now we're not looking at WNBA and they're losing money every year. You know? So, and then also, why are the NBA players not supporting the WNBA as much? Like, we won't have those conversations as much anymore. I believe this next generation will have that much impact.
That's definitely possible because it's a lot of talent in the women's division of college ball.
And also the girl from Stanford,
Cameron Brink.
Yeah, her as well. She's really good. She has name recognition. So just the NIL has done wonders to a lot of these women because before they weren't getting as much spotlight, but now it seems like with the NIL, a lot of these women are getting more, sponsorship deals, more commercials. We get to see them more.
That is true.
And that's great for the women's sport in general, in college basketball and in WNBA. So if you want to look at the bright side of NIL, I think it's the women's basketball and the WNBA. These women are getting more shine. They're getting more commercial deals. And now we know who they are. And we're like Juju's going to be the next iteration. She's going to be on a bunch of commercials as well because the hair, like people. How I was watching the Paul George podcast and one of the members, he was wearing the Juju hairstyle. So it's gonna be very great in the future.
Just let me be me.